Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great, following the 3 H's of the channel. And in this video, it's all about those strange encounters that don't really have an explanation, or shouldn't exist. If that sounds like something you're interested in, pull up a stump with me, and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. I have this weird story. It happened to me and my friend. We were 17 and 16 respectively. We were in a park that's next to the woods. It was around 11 p.m. Warm. It was a beautiful summer night. We were playing frisbee. There was no one else around. We were trying to make each other laugh by doing tricks, doing the behind the back throw, or catching it without looking. We're having a really good time. But as I'm about to throw the frisbee, I see a glint of light, so I shift my position. Around the edge of the short stone wall, there's a person, crouched or sitting down. It's hard to tell. I call my friend over, and we get a better view. It looks almost like a really pale bald guy who's kinda crouched down. I'm confused. I say, "What's up?" in the confused tone. He doesn't say anything. Instead, he stands up while giving us a death stare. The next thing that happened is one of the weirdest things that I've ever seen. While the guy's staring at us, he stands up and then begins to blend in with the background, almost like a chameleon. We can still just barely see his outline. He turns and makes his way back in through the bushes around the stone wall. Me and my friend try to follow, but we quickly lose the outline in the dark woods. We decide to turn around, go back to our car and head home. It only happened the one time. We've even been back to that spot like 100 times since then, and nothing. It's super weird. So this may not be as scary as some of the other stories you might hear, but keep in mind that it was scary as hell to me. So I grew up in Alaska. I was born there, and I didn't move down to the mainland USA until I was a teenager. My mother and father weren't from there, but they had been living there for almost a decade before I was born. Anyway, this happened when I was a little younger than a teenager. My father and I had just finished a day of visiting some friends of his who live out in the wilderness a bit, and the road home took us through some forest. It's in November, so there's already plenty of snow, and it's really dark in general. It's also around 10:30 p.m., if I remember right. He's driving, and I'm in the passenger seat. It's one 2-lane road with woods on either side. As we're driving, I notice something out of the corner of my eye. It makes my heart skip a beat. On the right side of the road, in the trees, briefly illuminated by the headlights, is a man. He's clearly visible between the trees. He's lumbering quickly through the snow toward the road, with arms stretched out. Not in a necessarily menacing way, but still trying to reach us. His face, though, his face looked like a horrible mockery of a human. Every bit of him was covered in ice. His eyes were definitely not human. His mouth was open in what seemed to be a silent scream. I immediately scream as the car passes him, covering my face with my hands. My dad looks at me and asks what's wrong. All I can get out is that there was a man trying to get us on my side of the road. My dad puts his car in reverse while locking the doors and getting a gun out of the glove box. We quickly get back to where I saw him, and he's gone. There aren't even any tracks in the snow that I can see. My dad slightly rolls the window down and calls out, "Does anybody need help?" No one answers, so we eventually drive away. My dad is wearing a grimace now, and it's my turn to ask him what's wrong. He replies, puzzled. He says he feels really sad and has no idea why. He assures me that I must have been mistaken and that it was something else that I saw. When I was a kid, we lived in a long dead-end street in the middle of nowhere. Before more houses were built, the sole purpose for that street was to serve as a long driveway to a farm that was a good 2 miles back off the main road. By the time I was born, there was still only a cluster of 3 houses up at the intersection. Our house about a mile further down, and then the old, original farmhouse at the end. On the whole street, there were only 4 kids that were around my age. 2 up at the start, myself, and then the other one being my best friend at the back of the farm. Most sunny days of summer, my buddy would ride his bike to my house, and together we'd ride the other mile up the tree-canopied road to join the 2 others, till sundown. One day, as we were riding up toward the intersection, there was a house off in the woods on our left, probably a good 50 yards back through the trees. The house had never been there, but it looked like it had. It looked like it had always been there, like that natural feeling, if you can get what I mean. There was an old swing set off to the side, an above-ground pool covered up with a tarp, etc. The odd thing about this house, aside from its inexplicable, sudden existence, was that there was no driveway. It looked almost abandoned, but the yard was cut, and the front door looked ajar behind its screen. We were trying to talk ourselves into going back there to look, but just then we saw someone walk over and stand in the darkened doorway. We got freaked out. We took off. We told the other 2 kids, and they thought that we were full of it, so we convinced them to come and see. The house was gone. They thought that we were just screwing with them until one of them saw the house a week later. Only, he claimed, it now had a driveway and a mailbox when he saw it. Weeks go by. We returned to school from summer break. We kept this as our little secret, except for one kid who had told a couple of others, until it eventually spread like wildfire. And as you can imagine, soon everybody was talking about the quote, ghost house, claiming to have seen it. One kid claimed to have gone inside, but he was a notorious kid who would just make things up to fit in, so nobody believed him. I saw it again that same fall, looking exactly as the other kid had described it, complete with the driveway and the mailbox. Only the mailbox was weird. No name, no number. Then, the squealer and his family moved away. Come that Halloween, there was talk of some kids going out there on a dare, and they saw it. By then, some other kids had heard about it, and some teenagers supposedly said that they were going to look for it after midnight. I never knew if this was true or not, or if it just got added to the story later, but those 4 kids disappeared. The mode of disappearance or death varies, but the fact remains that 4 kids were now missing. This kind of soured any more talk about the ghost house. The school year ground to a close, and come one day that following summer, that house suddenly became a permanent fixture of our little rural neighborhood. Everybody, my parents included, were now acting like it had always been there, complete with old couple with grown kids and its complete backstory. The only 2 people who remember any differently are myself and my best friend. We spent our entire childhood trying to find reasons not to interact with those creepy people. Those people that after seeing them led to the disappearance of 4 people that we knew. But they always looked at us with those odd, knowing look in their eyes. A look that seemed to imply 2 things. They knew that we knew, and number 2, that nobody was ever going to believe us. So this didn't happen at my job, but it happened just after I got off night shift, so I figured it fits. I'm a science teacher. I work at a school in one of the most rural parts of a fairly urban city. It's the last official event of the year. We have this social thing on a Saturday night where awards are given and whatnot. It runs super late into the night. I had some final stuff to do, like administrative stuff, so I decided to just stay and do it so I can enjoy my weekend before the 3-day week of nothing. I'm sitting in an empty classroom, filling out paperwork, stuff like monthly goal sheets and all that other stuff. This takes about 45 minutes. I finish quite late, and I turn the lights out and start to head home. The place is dark and silent. It's very surreal without kids. So I get in my car and I pull out to go home. I'm about to pull it onto the road when a car goes flying past at like 150 kilometers an hour. It's a straight road, so I just dismiss it as the local village idiot LARPing as a race car driver. I check to see if any of his mates are following him. Standing under the streetlight at the crossroads, about 100 meters away, is a figure about 8 to 10 feet tall, black as the darkness behind it. It's moving in a way that I can only describe as heavy, rapid breathing, as if it had just been sprinting. Its head is emitting an orange light. I fumble for my phone to try and take a picture, but it turns and runs back the way it came from. It's gone before I can even open the camera. I go home thinking about it, but I try to dismiss it as me being tired. But I can't help but thinking that the guy who was driving 150 kilometers down that street might have been fleeing from whatever this was. This happened when I was younger. We were on a family vacation across the pond to England. We were taking a tour of some old medieval ruins. I wander off to do, I don't know, kid stuff, probably play on the rocks or something. I come across this really ancient looking well with a heavily rusted metal grate covering the opening, a couple of rusted ladder rungs attached to the outside. I'm enchanted with my discovery. I proceed to throw rocks and grass and stuff through the grate. From below, I hear, "Hello?" The voice is quiet, clearly female, and clearly English. I jump, but otherwise I think nothing of the situation, as all people seem to do when they're younger. I say, "Hi." The well speaks back, "It's so nice to meet you. What is your name?" I tell the voice my name and return the question. The voice responds with a name that I can never remember, no matter how hard I try to think. The person in the well says, "Well, it's really nice to meet you. I never get to see anyone anymore." I say, "Why not?" The well says, "Because I'm stuck." Being a kid, I say, "How come?" The voice speaks back, "I fell here a long time ago. I think someone may have pushed me." I start to notice a sloshing sound at the bottom of the well, but I'm not tall enough to see over the edge, but it sounds quite far to the bottom. I say, "Okay, I'll go tell my mommy and we can help you come out." The sloshing stops. "No, please don't go away. I'm scared. It's hard for me to stay here." I try and ask why she's scared a couple of times. I don't really get a straight answer. Instead, I get, "I like you. Do you like me?" I say that I do, but I'm starting to get nervous. Even though I was a kid, the red flags were starting to pop up in my head. The well says, "It's dark and lonely down here. It doesn't ever change. But there are places we can go. We can make things." I was scared, but curious. I begin to clamber up the iron rungs to see over the edge of the well. It says again, "I've been lonely for a long time. You can help me." My eyes clear the edge of the well in time to see the metal grate slowly swing open of its own accord, hinges squealing. I fall off the well onto my side. I tear off across the ruins looking for my mom. Behind me, I can hear metal squeaking, splashing, shrieking, and screaming, someone yelling, "No, come back." It's by far one of the events of my life that still sticks with me. This was commented by Michael. "A few weeks ago, I wrote to you about a cryptid I've seen during my 4:30 a.m. e-bike commute. At first, I would just catch a random glimpse, but then it started to wait for me. It's a skinny, rake-like crawler thing. When I last wrote you, it had chased me that morning at 30 miles per hour, and if we were not closing in on a well-lit intersection, it would have caught me. I started taking a longer route to avoid this thing. It was hideously ugly. It smelled like a dumpster, and I could feel that it wanted to hurt or kill me. Since then, two things have changed. I liked my e-bike, but I wanted it to go faster. It had a 750-watt motor, so I bought a 2,000-watt motor, so now, on flat ground, it goes up to 47 miles per hour. Not just because of the crawler, but I do ride in some bad neighborhoods, so I got a can of pepper spray. I stayed away from that road, but it was cold yesterday morning, so I took the wooded route. I was thinking it's probably moved on by now, since it's been about a month. But halfway through, it jumped out of a ditch. I was going 30, but as soon as I saw it, I pegged the throttle and pulled the pepper spray out. In just a couple of bounds, it paced me, and its bony fingers were reaching for my arm. This spray is supposed to be good at 10 feet, but I unloaded it right in its black, soulless eyes. At first, it slowed a little, and I'm thinking, great, all I did was piss it off. But then it fell and screamed so loud that it hurt my ears. I also managed to get a decent amount in my own face. It hurt like hell, my vision blurred, and it felt like my face was on fire. The thing was still moving toward me, but it was mostly clawing at its own face and wailing. I slowed down enough so I could take aim and nail him with the rest of it. 2 minutes later, I was at work. You could hear it screaming, like it was a few feet away. There's a convenience store across the street, and they came out to see what the noise was. I go to the eye wash station, and my boss asks about it. I just say that somebody tried to steal my bike, and I sprayed them. She asks about the screaming. I say, I don't know about that. For a good 40 minutes, you could hear it until the cops start checking it out. It was a rough morning. And this was another comment from Michael. I liked the Arizona stories. In 1975, I was just 17. I had just graduated in Maryland, and my cousin invited me to spend the summer in Tempe, Arizona. Leaving the lush greenery of Maryland for the Arizona desert was like going to the moon. After making some friends, I was invited on a night ride in an open Jeep through the desert on a crystal clear, moonless night. After about an hour, we were in the middle of nowhere, with zero light pollution. The sky was phenomenal. The Milky Way was so bright. And then we heard, like, a crack of thunder. 3 of us thought it was cool, but the guy with the Jeep, who was part Native American, said that we should leave. We all whined. The sky's clear. It's not going to storm. A few seconds later, another crack, and then, ever so faintly, we could hear what sounded like the drums in those old westerns. Okay, they are coming. Either you ride back with me, or you have to walk because I'm leaving. I was complaining, but the driver pointed, and faintly, backlit from the sky, was a crowd of dark figures shuffling our way. The driver called them some name that I've forgotten since. I asked what they were doing in the middle of the desert, and he said, they're ghosts. If anyone knows about these things, what they're called, let me know. So thank you to Michael for commenting those. I couldn't find your original comment, but I still hope I could do your stories justice. About 10 years ago, I went on a trip into the desert near Salton Sea in California. I was just outside the ghost town, Bombay Beach. It was a great day for fishing tilapia. I had a blast. But when night rolled around, things got a little weird. I got my fire going to warm me up. It was getting down into the 30s. All of a sudden, I hear women screaming. The sound of women screaming is like a cacophony coming up from all directions. Initially, I believed it was a bunch of foxes, so I kinda just WTF'd myself away from the campfire. I put it out, and I just kinda went off a few yards to hide in my tent. I was hoping, without light, that they wouldn't know my position. But the screaming was constant. There's no break for at least 10 minutes. I'm starting to think that these aren't foxes. I'm holding on for dear life to my 8-inch fillet knife, holding on like it's my baby, and I'm ready to cut somebody if they come close, even though I'm really hoping that they don't. Eventually, I get a little bit braver. I pop my head outside the tent, and then I see several red dots off in the distance that look like they could be eyes, but they're several feet off the ground. I nope back right into my tent, zip it up, and I just lay there, hoping it stops. Luck was on my side that night, as the screaming eventually did stop. I was on guard all night. I didn't even sleep. I just stayed up, listening to my surroundings. It was the longest night of my life. Finally, daybreak comes. I get out of my tent to have a good look around. I have some training skills. Not great, but they're there. I head over to where I saw the eyes. There's tracks everywhere. They're human, but they all have 6 toes, and they're all moving in a circular pattern. I was initially supposed to be on this trip for 3 days, but after that experience, I just packed everything up and decided to go somewhere else entirely. As I've said, the tracks definitely weren't animal. They were undoubtedly human variety. There was something odd that I remember. You would have your typical human footprint: heel, half arc, metatarsi, and then toes, which, again, there were 6 of. But 2 to 3 inches past the toes, you'd have these 1 to 2 inch long, straight lines, almost as if they were incredibly long nail tracks. There were multiples of these. Given the size and depth of the pattern, a couple with that many red eyes as I had seen, I could easily come to the conclusion that there were multiple of these. I don't know what to call them. out there that night screaming. So, which one of those was your favorite? Let me know down in the comments. Do you have one of your own? I have an email in the description below that you can send them to if you'd like to. Some people also comment them. And in the description as well is a PayPal and a Patreon if you would like to support the channel that way. And with that, I think I will wish you a happy new year. I hope you stay safe, happy, healthy, and hydrated. And I'll see you in the new year. Thank you for watching, and thank you for pulling up a stump with me.